All right, guys, so now we're going to move on to chapter 5, which is all about solving and graphing what we call linear inequalities. So in chapter 2 and chapter 4, we talked about equations, which always feature an equal sign. Okay, the one difference between inequalities and equations is that inequalities are going to have one of these four symbols pretty much every time. It's either going to be a less than, or equal to, less than, or greater than or equal to sign. Okay, it's going to be one of these four things pretty much every single time when you're dealing with a linear inequality. So most of you guys are decently familiar with this stuff at this point, and there are ways to graph linear inequalities, and you guys might remember this from 8th grade possibly. When we graph linear inequalities, we have to discern between open circles and closed circles. So when you're making your graph on the number line, an open circle shows that the circled number is not included in the data set. And we're going to use open circles with these two symbols, less than or greater than. That just basically means the circled number is not included in the interval. Okay, opposite of an open circle would be a closed circle. And what is a closed circle? It shows that the circled number is included in the data set, and the two symbols associated with closed circles are less than or equal to, and then greater than or equal to. Got to remember those four things. Okay, so when it comes to solving inequalities, we're going to use the same inverse operations that we would use to solve an equation. Okay, algebra is still exactly the same. If you see plus 7x to get rid of it, you do minus 7x. Do the opposite to move it to the other side. The one exception with inequalities is except when we multiply or divide by a negative, we have to remember to do one thing. We have to remember to flip the inequality sign. All right, so I think the best way to practice these is just by doing some examples. It says solve and graph the inequality, and it says write your answer in set builder notation. All that means is to get the variable all by itself. Okay, so what I see over here is I see 3x plus 6 is less than or equal to 2x. So my goal here is I want to get x all by itself. And what's tricky about this is that there's some x's on the left and there's some x's on the right. So what I need to do is I need to get all my x's to the same side. So what I'll do first is I want to move this positive 2x over to the left. Now how do you move positive 2x? You have to subtract 2x from both sides. And if you have 3x minus 2x, you should be left with just plain old x. Still a plus 6 is next to it. And then we're going to have less than or equal to 2x minus 2x is just 0, so I have 0 on my right. Okay, then I ask myself this question. Is x by itself yet? No, it's not. There's a plus 6 next to it. How do I get rid of a plus 6? I have to subtract 6. So I subtract 6 from both sides. Then on my left side, I'm just left with x, which is what I want. I still have a less than or equal to sign. Because I have not divided or multiplied by a negative number, I have subtracted, but subtracting is fine. 0 is minus 6 is equal to negative 6. And my equation in set builder notation is x is less than or equal to negative 6. Okay, so I solved it. Now I'm going to graph it. Okay, so watch what I'm doing here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to plot 3 different numbers on the number line. I'm going to start with my solution, or my number I'm starting with, which is negative 6. Negative 6 is going to go smack dab in the middle. Okay, what I want is one number to the left of that number and then one number to the right of it. Okay, so ask yourself this question. What is one number to the left of negative 6? What is one number smaller than negative 6? That would be negative 7. And then what is one number bigger than negative 6? What is one number to the right of negative 6? It would be negative 5. Okay, all your positives are this way, all your really big negatives are going to the left. Okay, so you made the number line. You got 3 numbers total, the starting number, one number to the left of it, and one number to the right of it. Second step, draw an open or a closed circle. Remember, open circle is less than or greater than. Closed circle is whenever it's got a symbol with a little line underneath it. In this case, the symbol is less than or equal to. Okay, So because the symbol is less than or equal to, I'm going to use a closed circle. Anytime you've got the line underneath the inequality, it's going to be a closed circle. Okay, then the next step is you got to figure out what is the shaded direction that we're going to go in. Okay, are we going to shade to the left or are we going to shade to the right? Here's how you tell. You need to put your answer in set builder notation. Okay, so what does that mean? Okay, here is the pattern for set builder notation. It's always going to follow this format. The first thing you're going to see reading left to right is always going to be the variable. Let's always just call it x. You need to have the variable on the left, the sign in the middle, regardless if it's less than, greater than, or greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to. Then the number is going to be last. Okay? Write this somewhere on your paper and circle it. You always want your answers to follow this format of the variable, then the sign, then the number. Okay, why is this so important? When you have it in this order like I do here, variable, sign, number, I'm able to use this trick. So here we see that the symbol is less than or equal to. And I got to determine, am I going to shade to the left or am I going to shade to the right? So to determine the direction of your shading, if you're in this order of variable, sign, number, all you got to do is ask yourself, okay, what direction is my arrow pointing? And if I draw a little arrow here, I notice that my arrow is pointing to the left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shade this circle to the left. Okay, this little arrow trick only works if you're in this format of variable, sign, number, like we are over here. Variable, sign, number. Okay, so let's do another one. Let's do letter C. Actually, yeah, let's do letter C. So I've got 1/3 A is less than or equal to negative 12. And I want to get A by itself. So I want to get rid of the 1/3. Now, how do you get rid of a fraction? You have to multiply by the reciprocal. You guys remember that word from last chapter? Reciprocal. So what is the reciprocal of 1/3? It would just be 3/1. So I'm going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal of 1/3, which is just 3/1. And what's going to happen here is, if I do it to both sides, on my left side, these guys are going to cancel, and I'm just left with A. And on the right side, I'm left with negative 12 times 3/1. It's the exact same thing as negative 12 times 3, and that's equal to negative 36. Okay, have I multiplied or divided by a negative? No, I've only multiplied by a positive number. Okay, that negative 12 already started as negative 12. I didn't multiply by a negative to isolate A, so I leave my sign as is. It's less than or equal to. Okay, I'm in that format of variable, sign, number right now. A is less than or equal to negative 36, and that's always what I want. Okay, so now I go through the steps. First step, label 3 numbers on the number line. The middle number is what you solved for, negative 36 smack dab in the middle. What's one number to the left of negative 36? One number smaller than negative 36 would be negative 37. And then one number bigger than negative 36, one number to the right of it would be negative 35. Open or closed? There's a line underneath my inequality. It's less than or equal to, so it's going to be a closed circle at negative 36. And because I'm in that format of variable, sign, number, what direction is my arrow pointing? My arrow is pointing to the left. It's a little bit ugly, but I'm going to shade to the left here. Okay, try letter D. So I've got negative B over 10 is less than or equal to negative 3. My end goal here is I want to get B all by itself, and I got two things next to it. I've got a negative, and I've got a divide by 10. Let's get rid of the divide by 10 first. How do you get rid of divide by 10? You have to multiply by 10. You'll be left with negative b is less than or equal to negative 3 times 10 is equal to negative 30. Okay, is b all by itself yet? No, there's a negative next to it. How do you get rid of a negative? You have to either multiply or divide by -1. I'm going to choose multiply because you guys like multiplying a little bit more. So I'm going to multiply both sides by -1, and what happens? -1 times -b just becomes plain old positive b. And then -30 times -1, negative times a negative becomes a positive. This becomes positive 30. Okay, so here is the first instance where we have multiplied by a negative number. We multiplied or divided by a negative number. We multiplied both sides by -1. Anytime you multiply both sides by a negative number, what you have to remember to do is you have to remember to flip the sign. Previously, the alligator was eating the right. Now I got to change it so the alligator is eating the left. It's going to become b is greater than or equal to positive 30. Okay, so we did the hard part. I'm in the format of variable, sign, number. So now I can make my number line. What's in the middle here? Positive 30. What's one number to the left of it? Should be 29. What's the number to the right of it? 31. Open or closed? I see the line underneath, greater than or equal to. It's going to be a closed circle. Then what direction is my arrow pointing? I'm in the format of variable, sign, number. The arrow is pointing to the right. I shade here to the right.